Section 294 of Beyond Good and Evil is short but important, I think. In it, Nietzsche attacks Hobbes and the English generally for being anti-laughter. He assigns a quote to Hobbes, which may or may not be in Hobbes' work, and he uses it to critique the grotesque seriousness of English philosophy and of Christianity in general. He goes on to suggest an order of rank among philosophers. He says we may be able to classify philosophers according to their capacity for laughter, all the way up to those capable of golden laughter, a sense in which, for Nietzsche, the better a philosopher is, the stronger his spirit is, the more capable he is of a higher and purer kind of laughter. He adds also that if the gods were to philosophize, then they too would be able to laugh, which suggests an interesting connection between philosophy and the capacity for laughter. And he says, critically, their laughter would be new and superhuman. It would be unfamiliar to us. It would be something beyond human laughter. I think the overall purpose of this section is to contrast Nietzsche's life-affirming philosophy with the heavy, plodding seriousness of other philosophies of Christianity as he conceives of it, and maybe also, we would say, of the English as a people. Section 295, the penultimate section of the book, begins with a lengthy and, I think, very eloquent portrait of the genius of the heart. Nietzsche speaks of this new character quite movingly, and we begin by wondering who is this genius of the heart? What is the character who possesses this unique genius and power? Is it Socrates? Is it Nietzsche? Is it the philosopher of the future who's been spoken of earlier? Nietzsche refers to this character as the tempter god, as the Pied Piper of consciences, leading people away, binding people closer to him. The genius is the master of seeming and also of discernment and of manipulation. He's able to change people in certain ways and draw them closer to himself. He teaches what is loud and self-satisfied, I think both individuals and also parts of our souls. He teaches the loud how to listen, and he smooths over what is rough. He teaches us patience and stillness and allows us to plumb the hidden depths of our souls. And from him, everyone walks away richer in self-knowledge. I think at the end of this video, I will read this paragraph for you so you can hear just what Nietzsche says about this crucial figure. In the remainder of section 295, Nietzsche reveals to us that this figure he has been describing, this genius of the heart, is the god Dionysius, reconceived by Nietzsche as a philosopher, as a philosophical figure or a philosopher god, a god of the philosophers perhaps. He refers to himself as the last disciple and initiate of the god Dionysius. There's certainly a fair amount of theater in Nietzsche's self-presentation here at the end of this book. He says we may be suspicious of this new god, of this new philosopher. We may be offended by his suggestion that this is the new inspiration. He notes that we might praise, if he were so inclined, might praise Dionysius for his honesty and his truthfulness and love of wisdom, but says that the god Dionysius disdains human praise and would say, I have no need to cover my nakedness. We would just take him as he is. The god Dionysius, Nietzsche goes on to say, would praise man, the man of today perhaps, as inventive and courageous, and the god says, I would make of man something stronger, more evil, and more profound. Also, he says, more beautiful, and this is where the section leaves off. What are we to make of this idea of the god Dionysius here at the end of the book as a philosopher, as a philosophical figure, perhaps the type of god capable of this new and higher divine type of laughter? Well, it's plain that this is a being, a divinity that goes beyond the human, and beyond the human categories of good and evil that have been the subject of the study in this book, and especially in Part 9. We have here an alternative to the Platonic and Christian divinities that Nietzsche has inherited philosophically, and the moralities that go along with them. We have the divine reconceived in the mode of a tempter or a trickster or an experimenter. And I think we have here a god, a divinity that is both more than human and perhaps we might say also the creation of the human. In fact, the very last sentence of section 295, Nietzsche writes, "There are other good reasons for conjecturing that in several respects all of the gods could learn from us humans, for we humans are more humane, more human." In German, wir Menschen sind menschlicher. So I think in a sense the god Dionysius as philosopher is a realization of Nietzsche's ambition for some kind of replacement for the Christian God. It is a God that stands in a philosophical sense beyond the human. It is beyond good and evil, and I think it may be the God of the inspiration and creativity of this new type of philosopher, this new type of human being, this philosopher of the future that Nietzsche speaks of throughout this work. So I think that's one place that we can see this kind of dramatic and surprising invocation of the new philosopher Dionysius as an inspiring figure here at the end of the book. That brings us to the end of section 295. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching today. Now, as I promised, I'll read to you the first paragraph of section 295. Here we go. "The genius of the heart, as that great concealed one possesses it, the tempter god, and born Pied Piper of consciences, whose voice knows how to descend into the netherworld of every soul, who does not say a word or cast a glance in which there is no consideration and ulterior enticement, whose mastery includes the knowledge of how to seem, not what he is, but what is to those who follow him one more constraint to press ever closer to him in order to follow him ever more inwardly and thoroughly. The genius of the heart who silences all that is loud and self-satisfied, teaching it to listen, who smooths rough souls and lets them taste a new desire, to lie still as a mirror, that the deep sky may mirror itself in them. The genius of the heart who teaches the doltish and rash hand to hesitate and reach out more delicately, who guesses the concealed and forgotten treasure, the drop of graciousness and sweet spirituality under dim and thick ice, and is a divining rod for every grain of gold that has long lain buried in the dungeon of much mud and sand. The genius of the heart from whose touch everyone walks away richer, not having received grace, and surprised not as blessed and oppressed by alien goods, but richer in himself, newer to himself than before, broken open, blown at and sounded out by a thawing wind, perhaps more unsure, tenderer, more fragile, more broken, but full of hopes that as yet have no name, full of new will and currents, full of new dissatisfaction and undertows."